The Calderon family's quarterly brunch was never the warm, familial gathering the invitations claimed. It was a polished battlefield. Crystal plates, imported orchids, and relatives who treated conversation like a competitive sport. Their luxury penthouse in Brickell, covered in marble veins that looked too dramatic to be natural, served as the stage for yet another round of veiled boasting and social sparring. I took my usual seat by the balcony doors, the only place with natural light, sipping a glass of fresh papaya juice while the spectacle unfolded around me. "Closed on a villa in Capri last week," bragged Rowan, pushing his gold-rimmed glasses into his immaculately styled blonde hair. "Private marina. The kind that only serious people invest in. Our neighbors are Formula One families," his wife Sienna chimed in, flashing a diamond tennis bracelet with the confidence of a woman convinced diamonds could cure insecurity. "That's adorable," Aunt Mirabelle sang from across the table. "Remy and I just acquired an estate in the Loire Valley. Old vineyard. We kept the staff, of course." She grinned, the kind of grin that always hid a knife. I let their voices wash over me like background music in a hotel lobby. If only they knew the irony. If only they knew who I had truly become. "You're unusually quiet today, Leora," Rowan said, leaning toward me with a smirk. "Still living in that. What is it? That small corner apartment in Coral Gate. Right next to the taco stand," Sienna added with a chirpy laugh. "So quaint." I smiled politely. That small apartment had been my first redevelopment trial, an experiment that grew into something far bigger. Today, it was one of many properties under Vantage Rise Holdings, the investment firm I built quietly, brick by brick. They thought I barely scraped by. They had no idea I was their landlord's landlord. "I like the location," I replied. Aunt Mirabelle leaned over and patted my hand as if I were a lost child. "Sweetheart, you're 32. It's time to build something serious." Serious. Try a $1.4 billion portfolio spanning residential towers, community hubs, and commercial blocks, including Calderon Tower, the very building where we were eating overpriced pastries and pretending we liked one another. I had bought it quietly through a blind trust months ago. Not one of them could trace a single brick back to me. "I'm doing well," I said simply. It was the first moment of silence that entire morning. "You probably couldn't even qualify for a conventional mortgage," Rowan said with a snort. "Oh, Rowan." In 2 weeks, his lease renewal would arrive, this time bearing my name. Dad finally looked up from his mimosa. "Let's behave," he muttered. "Not everyone is meant for grand ventures." "Speaking of ventures," Sienna cut in. "Have you heard about the company that bought those heritage shops on Mariner Row? Word is they're tearing the whole area down." She watched me carefully, waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. I was that buyer. And I wasn't tearing anything down. "That's unfortunate," I said calmly. "You'd need deep pockets to even tour those properties," Rowan said smugly. "Not that you'd know." I rested my chin on my hand and let them talk. They had no idea what storm was coming. No idea that the audit request their board was panicking over came from me. No idea they were seconds away from watching their illusions crumble. But they would. Very soon. Because on that same afternoon a quiet notification hit my phone, the one that would flip their entire world upside down. Ownership confirmation processed. And the Calderons had no idea their mysterious new landlord was sitting right at their table. By the time brunch ended, the Calderons dispersed through the penthouse like actors exiting a stage. Sienna floated toward the private elevator, already planning her tour of potential flip projects, as she liked to call the overpriced bungalows she never actually bought. Rowan lingered only long enough to adjust his watch for the third time that morning. Aunt Mirabelle kissed the air on both sides of my face like a monarch blessing a peasant. Dad offered a half-hearted, "Drive safe, kiddo," before disappearing into a phone call that was probably about someone else he cared about more. I slipped out quietly, clutching the leather tote that held the documents none of them realized were more valuable than every imported vase in that penthouse combined. The elevator ride down from the 62nd floor was peaceful, the kind of peace that hums just before lightning splits the sky. At the building's entrance, my driver, Matteo, pulled up in a modest black sedan. Not flashy, not attention-catching, just like me. "Morning, Ms. Hale," he said as he opened the door. "Morning, Matteo." Straight to the office. I checked my phone as we pulled away from Calderon Tower, its glass exterior reflecting the Miami sun so beautifully it almost made me forget the corruption festering inside it. A small banner flashed across my lock screen. Ownership announcement will go live in 15 minutes. Perfect. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of preparation. Years of quiet work, hidden intentions, silent clawing up the ladder while everyone assumed I was still on the ground. Vantage Rise Holdings wasn't a loud company. It didn't need to be. It built steady, ethical, community-centered developments, clean books, transparent budgets, real impact. And now, it owned every square foot of the Calderon's prized jewel. When I arrived at my office, a glass-wrapped penthouse suite overlooking the city, I felt the shift instantly. My world was composed, high-functioning, and calm. A sharp contrast to the chaos that would soon erupt several floors below my family's own offices. Nara, my chief of staff, entered with her usual efficiency, placing a cappuccino beside my tablet. "The board from Calderon Tower is assembling earlier than expected," she said. "Your family included." I gave a soft laugh. Trying to negotiate with a ghost they still think is foreign money. "They're nervous," Nara said. "The audit packet hit them harder than we anticipated." "It needed to," I said, turning to the window. "They've turned that building into a personal piggy bank for years. Legacy doesn't excuse exploitation." She hesitated. "Leora, once the announcement goes out, there's no going back. They'll know. All of them." He nodded. "Good. They've spent a lifetime lecturing me about responsibility. Time to show them what it actually looks like." She tapped her tablet. 10 minutes until the press release. My suit today was a deep charcoal, sharp enough to cut glass. Not glamorous, not ostentatious, just precise, intentional, power in fabric form. Nothing like the bright, shallow outfits the family preferred to wear when they wanted to be seen. "You ready?" Nara asked. Closed my briefcase. "I've been ready since they first told me I'd never amount to anything." As we walked toward the private elevator leading to the boardroom, my phone buzzed again. Announcement sent. Public in 30 seconds. I didn't stop, didn't flinch, didn't blink. But I could already imagine the panic unfurling in Calderon Tower like wildfire. Rowan refreshing the newsfeed. Sienna clutching her bracelet like a comfort blanket. Aunt Mirabelle gasping so dramatically it could qualify as performance art. Dad staring at the headline, knowing part of him created the very daughter he underestimated. Then the elevator doors slid open, and I stepped into the boardroom doorway just as the notifications hit every phone in the room at once. Faces paled, chairs stilled, and then I heard it. Rowan's voice cracking. "Vantage Rise Holdings. Owned by Leora Hale." I smiled only slightly. Because the real shock wasn't the announcement. It was the folders I was about to lay on the table. The ones that would dismantle their entire empire, line by incriminating line. Every phone in the room buzzed like a swarm of startled bees. The board members, seasoned executives, attorneys, consultants, looked from their screens to each other in confusion, then to the Calderon family, who were rapidly losing their carefully composed veneer. Rowan was the first to speak, pointing a trembling finger at me. This is some kind of joke, right? Leora, you don't own anything like this." I stepped fully into the room, setting my briefcase at the head of the long glass table. Their seats were on the other side, an arrangement that felt symbolic now. "Good morning," I said calmly. "Shall we begin?" Sienna stared at her phone like it had personally betrayed her. Aunt Mirabelle's hand flew to her pearl necklace, clutching it with the intensity of someone gripping a life preserver. Dad went noticeably still, as if turning to stone might make him vanish. One of the independent board members, a composed woman named Dr. Jules, cleared her throat. "Ms. Hale," she said, reading the article aloud, "you are the founder and sole owner of Vantage Rise Holdings, now confirmed as the acquiring entity for Calderon Tower and 5 additional blocks within the district." She looked up, surprised but measured. "Is that correct?" "Yes," I replied. A ripple of shock passed across the table. Rowan slammed his palm against the wood. "This is impossible. Leora has what? A tiny apartment above a bakery." "Yes," I said softly. "My apartment. And my bakery." The room went dead quiet. Dr. Jules blinked. "You own the entire block on Mariner Row?" He nodded. "And I intend to preserve it. Unlike some of your redevelopment proposals." Sienna flinched like she'd been slapped. I opened my briefcase, slowly, deliberately. The sound of the latches popping echoed in the tense silence. "Before we move forward," I said, pulling out thick binders. There are financial discrepancies we need to review. The color drained from Rowan's face. Sienna swallowed hard. Aunt Mirabelle visibly tensed. Dad shut his eyes briefly, as if bracing for impact. I placed the first binder in front of Rowan. Let's start with this one, I said. It outlines a pattern of improperly allocated funds over the last 17 months. Specifically, $2.1 million marked under emergency infrastructure repairs that appear to coincide with your villa purchase in Capri. Rowan's jaw dropped open so far he looked unhinged. That's ridiculous, he sputtered. Coincidence. Pure coincidence. Of course, I said, tapping the binder. The itemized invoices from a contracting company your friend happens to own are also pure coincidence, I'm sure. A few board members exchanged sharp looks. I slid the second binder toward Sienna. As for you, your event coordination budget is fascinating. 36 luxury spa days billed as client entertainment. And yet, I flipped a page. Not a single client appears on these receipts. Sienna went pale. I was under stress, she said weakly. It's a high-pressure environment. Then perhaps a therapist would have been a better business expense, I replied. Even Dr. Jules tried and failed to suppress a smirk. Aunt Mirabelle got her binder next. Her expression remained icy, but her hands trembled. Your charitable foundation, I said gently, processed donations through the tower's maintenance account. Roughly $840,000 worth. A gasp rippled through the room. Mirabelle's icy mask cracked. That money went to good causes, she snapped. Then you should have used your own, I countered. Not funds designated for tenant safety and building upkeep. Finally, I looked at my father. His folder was thinner. Not because he was innocent, but because he was careless. Dad, I said quietly, sliding it toward him. You authorized every one of these expenses without reviewing them. He looked at the packet like it was a verdict. In many ways it was. The boardroom was silent, so silent I could hear the soft ticking of the wall clock. Closed my briefcase. Here's what happens next, I said. This building undergoes a full operational overhaul. Transparent budgets. Independent audits. Ethical governance. Non-negotiable. Rowan slammed a fist on the table. You can't do this. We're family. I met his furious, panicked stare. Yes, I said. And that's exactly why it has to be done. Because just as I finished speaking, every phone in the room buzzed again. This time with the notifications no one expected. Tenant testimonials. Employee statements. And a leaked video. A video that would change everything. The moment I finished speaking, every phone on the table vibrated at once. An eerie, synchronized hum that made the hairs on my arms rise. Dr. Jules checked hers first. Then her eyes widened. Oh my, she whispered. Rowan grabbed his phone. Sienna snatched hers. Aunt Mirabelle fumbled so hard she nearly dropped it. Dad stared, frozen, as the notifications kept pouring in. Headlines. Tenant comments. Employee submissions. Public reactions. And then the video. Rowan's face drained of color instantly. Turn that off, he hissed. Now. But it was too late. Dr. Jules tapped the screen and the boardroom filled with the sound of a man shouting. Not just any man, Rowan. The footage showed him berating a maintenance worker near the loading dock, face red, arms flailing, calling the employee incompetent, replaceable, and lucky to even be allowed in the building. At the end of the clip, he threw a clipboard at the wall, barely missing the employee's head. The gasps around the table were immediate. That's taken out of context, Rowan barked. I was having a bad day. It was recorded last Tuesday, Dr. Jules said coldly. The same day you filed a request for a $12,000 team morale lunch. Sienna put a hand over her mouth. Her eyes darted to her own phone. Another leak had hit the feed. Sienna Calderon, Dr. Jules read aloud. Caught on camera mocking a disabled tenant for asking about elevator accessibility. Sienna flinched. I wasn't mocking, I was confused. You said, Dr. Jules continued, reading word for word. If you can't climb stairs, maybe this building isn't for you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Sienna lowered her head, voice trembling. I didn't think anyone heard that. Oh, they heard, I said softly. And they. The shrill alert cut through the boardroom like a siren in a cathedral. Every phone buzzed with the same message. Warning, building emergency. Calderon Tower lobby. Ceiling leak / possible structural compromise. Immediate response required. Rowan's eyes went wide. Sienna covered her mouth. Aunt Mirabel whispered, "Not now. Dear God, not now." Dad stood up so fast his chair toppled. "This can't be happening today." I grabbed my briefcase calmly. "Let's go," I said. The board members followed me without hesitation. My family trailed behind like ghosts. As the elevator descended, the tension tightened with every passing floor. Rowan kept muttering under his breath. Sienna tapped her phone with trembling fingers. Mirabel clutched her pearls as though divine intervention might prevent consequences. When the doors opened to the lobby, the scene was chaos. Buckets lined the marble floor, catching steady streams of water dripping from a sagging section of the ceiling. A maintenance worker stood on a ladder, flashlight in hand, shouting instructions to two others who scrambled to move furniture out of the splash zone. And in the middle of it all, tenants gathered, filming, whispering, shaking their heads. One older man pointed directly at the Calderon family as we emerged. "There they are," he said. "The ones who ignored the repair requests." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Rowan turned white. This is being handled," he stammered. But the maintenance supervisor, a woman named Kara, climbed down from the ladder and walked straight to me. "Ms. Hale," she said with relief audible in her voice. "Thank God you're here. The issue's exactly what we flagged 3 months ago." 3 months. Rowan's voice cracked. "Kara, why are you talking to her?" Kara looked at him as if he'd asked why the sky was blue. "Because she's the new owner," Kara said plainly. "And because she listens." A stunned silence followed. I walked beneath the sagging ceiling tile, careful but composed. A faint water stain spread outward like a bruise. "What caused it?" "Yes. Deferred repairs," Kara said loudly enough for everyone, including the tenants filming, to hear. "We requested approval 5 times. Never got it." All eyes turned to Rowan, Sienna, and Mirabel. Dad closed his eyes. Then a woman holding a toddler stepped forward. "I emailed you," she said, looking directly at Sienna. "My ceiling dripped for weeks. You told me to be patient. My baby has asthma." Sienna's lower lip trembled. I didn't think it was that serious." "It's serious now," the woman said sharply. A young store owner from the ground floor cafe spoke next. "We've been asking for plumbing inspections for half a year. If the new owner hadn't stepped in today, that whole slab might have collapsed." Murmurs of agreement rose around him. Tenants who'd once been ignored suddenly had an audience. And a voice. Rowan threw his hands up. "Look, I can explain." "No," I said firmly. "Don't." He froze mid-sentence. I turned to the tenants as the board gathered behind me. "I'm sorry this was allowed to happen," I said, projecting so the whole lobby could hear. "It should never have taken this long for repairs. And it will not happen again. Not under my leadership." For the first time the room quieted, not in fear but in relief. Kara straightened at my side. "We've got a temporary fix for now, but we'll need a full structural assessment." "Approved," I said immediately. Rowan sputtered. "You didn't even ask for a cost estimate." "I don't need to," I replied. "Safety isn't negotiable." A soft, grateful applause broke out among the tenants. Rowan looked around, horrified, as if applause for me was the true catastrophe. Dad stepped closer to me, voice barely above a whisper. "You handled this like an actual leader." "I am one," I said simply. He nodded, eyes filled with something I hadn't seen from him in years. Respect. Or perhaps realization. But just as the tension began to settle, a security guard jogged toward us, breathless. "Ms. Hale, we've got another problem. Someone's triggered a file dump from the executive office server." Rowan stiffened. Sienna's eyes darted wildly. Mirabel whispered, "No, no, no, no." The guard continued. "All internal financial records are being leaked. In real time." For a heartbeat no one moved. No one breathed. Then the guard added, "It's coming from upstairs. From your family's suite." And when we reached the executive floor, the door was open, the room was empty. And a laptop sat in the center of the desk, streaming every Calderon secret to the world. The elevator ride back up to the executive floor felt like ascending into the eye of a storm. No one spoke. The hum of the machinery was the only sound, Steady, vibrating, almost accusatory. Rowan paced in frantic circles. Sienna kept whispering, "This can't be happening," like a mantra. Aunt Mirabel looked dazed, clutching her purse like a shield. Dad stood still, jaw set. His face a haunting mix of shame and fear. When the elevator doors slid open, the hallway was eerily quiet. A security guard motioned us forward. "It's in your suite," he said, eyes shifting toward my family. We hurried down the corridor. The door to the Calderon executive office stood wide open, lights on, papers scattered, chairs askew like someone had left in a rush. And there, in the center of the massive oak desk, laptop sat open, fans whirring, screen overflowing with document after document after document. Internal financial statements, unauthorized transfers, manipulated invoices, offshore accounts, misappropriated funds. Every line item glowed in damning clarity as the system streamed it live to a public server. "Someone shut it off," Rowan yelled, diving for the laptop. "Don't," the security guard barked. "It's already mirrored. Pulling the plug won't stop the upload." Rowan stumbled backward, face contorted. "Who did this?" Jenna cried. "Who?" "Someone who had access," the guard said. "Someone with administrative clearance." Mirabel gasped. "Administrative? But that's only..." Her eyes slowly turned to Dad. Rowan's head snapped around. Sienna froze mid-breath. Mirabel's jaw fell slack. Dad stood motionless. Not shocked. Not confused. Just resigned. My pulse skipped. "Dad," I said quietly. He sank into the nearest chair as though his bones had given up. "It wasn't an attack," he murmured. "It wasn't sabotage. It was overdue." Rowan nearly choked. You leaked it." Dad ran a tired hand over his face. "I didn't leak anything. I initiated the internal investigation months ago. Set the automated audit system to release the data if discrepancies passed a threshold." "What threshold?" Mirabel demanded. He looked at us, eyes hollow. $3 million. No one spoke. 3 million. The number his own children had surpassed without blinking. Sienna let out a strangled sob. Rowan's eyes blazed with betrayal. Mirabel looked ready to faint. "The system wasn't supposed to trigger this soon," Dad whispered. I hoped you'd course correct." He looked at Rowan and Sienna, really looked at them for the first time in years. "You didn't," he said quietly. "None of you did." Rowan pointed at me, desperate. "This is her fault. Leora came in here with her holier-than-thou empire and poisoned everything." "Enough," Dad snapped, rising to his feet, voice suddenly strong. "Your sister didn't break this family. You did." The room fell silent. Dad turned toward me, shoulders heavy but posture steady. "For years, I thought success meant appearances," he said. "Deals. Lavish offices. Bragging rights." He gestured toward the glowing screen. "But what you've built, its substance. Its purpose. Something I forgot to teach." Sienna sniffled. "So this is it. We're just done." "No," I said softly. "You're at a beginning. And beginnings can be hard." I walked to the laptop and closed it gently. The damage was already done, but so was the healing. "Here's what happens next," I said, turning to face them all. "You step down from operational roles. All 3 of you." Rowan opened his mouth, but I lifted a hand. "You'll undergo financial oversight training. Community engagement hours. You'll earn back trust, not just from the board, but from the people who live in this building." Sienna swallowed. "And Dad?" Dad met my gaze. "I'll do whatever you decide," he said. "I deserve that." Took a breath. "You'll stay," I told him. "In an advisory capacity only. But you'll stay." His eyes glistened. Mirabel pressed a trembling hand to her chest. "So, we rebuild." "Yes," I said. "Together. If you're willing." And for the first time, maybe in our entire history, every Calderon nodded at the same time. Not in arrogance. Not in denial. But in acceptance. The weight finally cracked, and something new began forming in the space beneath it. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the Miami skyline, Kara sent me a photo from the repaired lobby. Tenants smiling, kids playing, the temporary ceiling patch holding strong. Progress. Real progress. Dad approached quietly beside me. "You were always the one who understood what legacy truly means," he said. I looked at the tower, its windows glowing warmly in the twilight. No, I whispered. I just remembered what everyone else forgot. Because this wasn't the end of the Calderon story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. One built on truth, accountability, and something our family had never truly known. Integrity.